to just start talking because in like 3 minutes, I'm going to throw you into breakout rooms anyway. So we'll figure out the technology while you're in breakout rooms. So welcome. Apologies for the technical difficulties. I'm Pam Gordon, and I'm here from Massachusetts. I'm in a small town called Harvard, Massachusetts. It's about 45 minutes west of Boston. I started with BPL in a school in Leominster, Mass, which is close to here, and it's called the Leominster Center for Excellence, and we're the first big picture learning school in Massachusetts. So I've been with LCE for a number of years. I was an advisor. I was an internship coordinator. I was the acting principal for a very short time. And then for the past year and a half, I continue to work with LCE as a coach, and I work with the teachers and professional development and stuff like that. But for the past year and a half, I have had the honor and privilege there it is. Thank you, April, of working on a research project for BPL with these amazing other internship coordinators from around the network. And so I am going to today, in a minute, I'll have them introduce themselves because they're going to be a huge part of this. But today we're going to spend some time talking to you about the research that we've been doing on the impact of internships, and then give you an opportunity in breakout rooms to work with these internship coordinators that have been a part of this work, kind of reading the words of students and looking at what they've said about what's been impactful about internships, and thinking about how you can use their words and what they're saying and what we're finding in this research to improve and better your internship programs or create your internship programs. So do you guys want to go ahead and introduce yourselves?
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, I had to unmute, so there's something on here. Anyway, so my name is April Moore. I was with the Future School of Fort Smith. I absolutely love our internships. We have over 180 partners now. And it has been such a pleasure to find other people that had the same thought process around internships and the importance of work-based learning and the things that you see after they graduate and the direction that they get to go. It's absolutely amazing to watch a kid that wanted to be, EMS, but fainted because they hate the blood, actually find something that they want to do and not waste that time on schooling. So it's been amazing, and I wouldn't trade it for anything. Pass on.
Right, I can go next. Hi, I'm Anthony Burrell, and I work at New Harmony High School, and we are actually, a newer school. We're going into our fourth year, and yeah, I head up like our internship program as well as all of our other, just kind of work-based learning experiences. So I've been happy to participate in this project. And I too, have seen the value of students participating in internships and, the relationships that they've been able to develop and cultivate, and just how that experience and those relationships have, really supported them in figuring out what they want to do in life, or just developing confidence, or just, aspiring to try new things and explore different careers. So yes, very much just appreciate this type of program.
I'll go next. So I'm Melissa Mason. I am at the Met High School in Providence. So I am in charge of all 800 students internships. And so I see it from the bigger picture, no pun intended, and really excited to dig into all of our information that we have gotten for all of you today.
Good morning or good afternoon or wherever you are. Hi, I'm Mary Beth. I'm the a learning through internship coordinator at Seven Oaks Met and Maples Met School, and now the Met Center for Arts and Technology in Winnipeg, Canada, Treaty 1 territory. Yeah, like I'm so excited to be in this space with all of these folks and all of you because there's just so many lessons that we've learned throughout the years, and like to be able to bring together the information and have it there for us to use in our own way, in our own spaces. Like for me, is particularly in my community, there is a big shift happening in terms of the structure of the system of our schooling here, and this is just a great example of why we need a program like BPL and Met schools in our communities, so that we can really see our kids one student at a time and meet them where they're at. So I'm so excited to share.
Thank you, guys. And also I want to do a shout out to Vicki Lemus, who's from the Met Sacramento, who is not with us today, but she was also a huge part of this work. So she just couldn't be here today. So in a minute, and I'll explain to you what we're going to do. Brenna, who is also here helping us and has also been part of the work a little bit. So that's exciting to have her be here as our Zoom moderator too. So we're going to put you into breakout rooms, and just to kind of get into the mindset of internships. And I know there's been a lot of talk around leaving to learn, and I was so excited about the LTI cards that people got this week. But we're going to put you into breakout rooms for about 6 minutes, 7 minutes. Just groups of 3 or 4. And April, can you go to the next slide? Actually, it gives the instructions. So just to make a connection with someone and start to get into that mindset, I'd like you to talk about a mentor that you've had in your life and how that person has impacted you. And it could be someone you have today, it could be someone from your past, or if you're really continuing to be excited about what you did, which I think everyone is, but for your leaving to learn this week, if you could share that, but be brief. You could do that. You could share something about your leaving to learn and the potential that you see for a young person in your school or community to have a meaningful experience there. So either talk about a mentor or talk about a leaving to learn, or just say hi to a friend or meet someone new. And so we'll send you into these small breakouts for about 5 or 6 minutes, and then invite you back. And after that, I'm going to talk about the research, and then we're going to dig into some data and take a look at it and talk about it. So Brenna, I think we're good to go if you want to send people off.
All right, I just opened all the rooms. Have fun, friend.
So I hope that you guys, I hope that that sort of just helped meet someone. I think connections are incredibly important, and the networks that you create, and our students talk about that, and also got you kind of in the mindset of thinking mentor and internship. So April, if you could go to the next slide, that would be great. So like I said before, I'm going to spend a little bit of time talking to you about the research and giving you a general overview of the findings. And then we're going to send you into larger breakout rooms where the internship coordinators who we just met are going to lead you through an exercise to look at some of the excerpts from interviews that we did and some of the student words, because as we all know, it's really fantastic and so important to bring the student voices and words into the process. So this was a research project on the impact of internships, and it was a university school network collaboration, which was very exciting to me, and I think all of the folks that were involved in it from the university perspective and the BPL perspective. We were grateful and thankful to the Leon Lowenstein Foundation for funding this work. So Big Picture Learning partnered with Boston College, with 2 professors from Boston College, Drs. Maureen Kenny and David Bluestein, who are experts, not excerpts. They are experts in the psychology of working theory. They actually created it. And Maureen Kenny does a lot of work around work-based learning. And they have, they've had a kind of an ongoing relationship with Big Picture Learning, I believe, since 2016. And Maureen Kenny did a pilot project doing some research with 6 different schools where they actually had some student researchers, and that's something we're exploring doing again in the future, getting the youth involved in our research. And they developed a theory of change, and then got this opportunity from the Leon Lowenstein Foundation that was looking to create an evidence base around personalized learning. And I think, as a lot of people know, this is the internships, and what we do here at BPL is kind of the epitome of what we think about with personalized learning and one student at a time. And I should also say, I didn't add them on here, but we also had really great consult and collaboration with Julia Freeland Fisher and Manaz Chanaria from the Christensen Institute. So they were also involved in helping us think about this. And you'll see, as I talk about it, there's a lot of talk around social capital as well, which is really what their expertise is. So this study was launched in January of 2020. And with all great things that have happened over the past year and a half, we had a fabulous plan that we came up with at a big meeting with a lot of people involved in LA. And then in March, as you know, the world shut down and we had to kind of pivot our research, but that's okay. We did it and it was fabulous. So we had 5 schools involved. 3 of the schools are schools that are more veteran to BPL, and then 2 of the schools were newer to BPL. And one of the important pieces of the design was that we had people from each of the schools involved, because we really wanted to make sure to have the practitioner's voice and connection to this research. So I'm going to switch the slide in a second, April, but not right now. When we pivoted the research turned into a mixed method study, and that really focused on the words of students. And we focused on seniors who were on the cusp of graduation in 2020. So we interviewed 14 seniors. We have since interviewed 6 more this spring, but that data is not in these findings that I'm going to talk about, because we just recently did those. But we interviewed 14 seniors who were graduating. They were finishing their senior year during COVID. And they were the sample was kind of a sample of convenience. They were kids who we could access and who were wanting to be a part of this study. We also conducted surveys, and we're also looking at excerpts from autobiographies, and in some cases, probably also some of the schools have valedictorian speeches. So we'll use that data too. Can you change the next slide, please? Okay, so the sort of one of the kind of theory of change, or the big picture view of how we were looking at all of this, is we're looking at the student LTI experience and learning, and we think about that in terms of relationships, interests, and practice. And we think about how we talked a lot about how their experiences and learning with each of these pieces lead to certain assets and dispositions, and you can see that list there. And then the theory is that these students develop these assets and dispositions through their experiences, through their learnings, through all these pieces that BPL schools have set up for them. And this leads to a life of purpose, engagement, and satisfaction. And so we went into this research with this and asking a bunch of questions that are on the next slide, research questions. This is going to be a little researchy for a minute, but so the questions are: how do students' experiences and learning in the LTI contribute to the development of assets and dispositions that lead to lives of purpose, engagement, and satisfaction? And you could see that in that model, in that diagram. What roles do contextual factors such as relationships at schools and in internships sites play in student experiences and learning at the LTI? And you'll see in what I talk about in a few minutes that relationships are enormous. And I think that you could probably guess that. How do students make meaning of their experiences at school and in the LTI to navigate the contextual challenges in their lives? There were a lot of challenges over the past when we were interviewing these students, and they also come to the schools with a lot of challenges. So how do they navigate these to move forward with engagement, hope, and purpose? And then finally, how do students with fewer resources benefit from the LTI and school opportunities to attain school outcomes that are similar to students with more resources? And so these were questions we went in with. And April, if you go to the next slide, I will talk about them. Talk about this. So the interviews that we did and the analysis that we've done have left us with basically 4 different themes of findings. The findings have come out in 4 different themes. The first one is, I've actually called it kind of affirmation data. Like the first one is, we think our internship experiences, our LTI experiences, and all of the pieces that we have from building relationships to doing interest explorations, what we think they do, the students are actually also saying that they do. So the students are saying that they're building these academic and vocational skills and their soft skills. And I'll show a little bit more of that in a minute. There's also a huge amount of discussion around relationships and the importance of relationships. That's sort of the second theme that's come out of this work. Another theme is these students are talking about critical awareness, and they have a critical consciousness that is very powerful, seems maybe a little unique and really connected to the work that they're doing in their schools. And then they also are thinking a lot about their future, which is not probably a huge surprise, but they're also thinking about their future with purpose, which is pretty exciting. So next slide, please, April. Okay, so the first set, which is kind of what we think we do, we're doing. So, and Dr. Kenny talks about mechanisms and outcomes. So the mechanisms we have in place are interest exploration, shadow days, informational interviews, all these ways to get students thinking about what they're going to do. And then the outcomes are kind of what's coming out of their LTI experiences. So from what we're seeing is that the students have a deep and positive awareness of themselves and others. They learn about their future work and career. They're exploring, discovering, and refining their interests and passions. They're building interpersonal networking and communication skills for successfully navigating and advancing in school and career. And they're building self-management skills for success in school, life, and work. And so the students are saying this. So all of this is coming from the words of the students. And at the bottom here, you can see a quotation from one of them. My internships taught me how to be more open and how to be more talkative and how to say the right words in front of people. If I went to a traditional school, I feel like I wouldn't have been able to grow as a person as I did here. Next slide. So you may have seen this diagram somewhere before, but the other really key piece is about relationships. Students' relationships are strong and important. They're building relationships with their advisors, with their mentors, and then bringing parents and families into the conversation has been very important to these students as well. And these relationships, they talk about the emotional support that they get. They talk about the guidance they're getting from these different folks. They're talking about, especially when they talk about their mentors, how much they promote, and actually I should say all of them, promoting their growth. And then there's the social connection and networking and the social capital that we're really trying to look into. That's so important. And again, I'm not going to read it, but there's another quotation down there. And you're going to get to look at a lot of student words in a few minutes. So next slide, please. So I said this before, they're thinking about their future goals. They're thinking about having lives of purpose, engagement, and satisfaction. They're talking about it. They talk about how their school and their LTI experiences fostered an awareness in their future, an awareness of college and career, that should actually say, They're talking about very specific, we ask about, and they talk very specifically about their career and college goals, and they refer to their LTI experiences in that. And one of the most exciting, a very exciting piece of this is that when they talk about their college and career goals, they talk about it with a broader sense of purpose. So they're not just saying, I want to go, which would be fine. They're not just saying, I want to go and be a doctor. They're saying, I want to go and be a doctor because of this, this, and this. And they have this kind of, I think, actually in one of the things that you might look at, there is a medical student example of that. And this particular student that I put up here is talking about, she actually at one point says she wants to be the Secretary of Education. And her interview was when Betsy DeVos was the Secretary of Education. So she would like to be the Secretary, teach for a while and then be the Secretary of Education because the education system is messy and she wants to fix it. Next slide, please. Okay, so another thing that's, we ask a lot of questions about hope and goals and purpose. And then we have a whole section around critical awareness. And we see that students are developing a critical consciousness. They're aware of challenges and barriers that created the stress and limited opportunities. They describe a sense of purpose, hope, and critical consciousness in overcoming and navigating these challenges. And to some extent, and this is Dr. Kenny, and from the work that she's done, to some extent, she is saying that the sources of purpose, hope, and critical awareness, the motivation and action can be really tied to their school and BPL experiences, which is exciting and pretty cool. So next slide. And I'm going through this sort of quickly, but I also want to, you're going to look at more of this in rooms. So we did ask a lot of questions about the impact of COVID, and we've asked, I think it was an interesting time to do the interviews because it was in the spring of 2020, and we didn't quite know that it was going to impact. We knew it had a huge impact, but we didn't know the long term. We didn't know that we were going to still be in it right now. And so we've done the second set of interviews we've actually added some more questions about COVID, but we're really interested in kind of have LTI experiences and the work that we do in a BPL school with advisory and relationships. Has that in any way, how has that set students up? How did it set students up to be prepared for something like COVID? And they talk a little bit about their coping mechanisms and their strategies. And we see a lot more. I've conducted a few of the interviews this spring, and I'm seeing a little bit more of that this spring. So they talk about, an STP is a senior thesis project. So these were all seniors, and they were all in the midst of their senior thesis projects or just finishing them off. And so actually the shutdown last year really had a huge impact on that for them as well. And this year's crew too. Okay, next slide. Okay, so I put this in here because this quotation I will read to you. I thought was really great. There's so many so many treasures, but this student, again, these are all seniors. There was one junior, but these are all seniors. Says, I think it has been really beneficial. This is a question about the school, because in a regular high school, you're kind of just doing the same thing as every other kid. But in a BPL school, you get to follow your passions, especially with internships, getting to explore this career field because lots of people go into school not really knowing what they are interested in, which is totally fine. But I think a BPL school is really helpful. With the big picture learning schools, you really have to look at your passion, at what you're really interested in. So, April, can you go to the next slide? Okay, so I don't know if people probably have some questions about this, but what I'm actually going to hold your questions, or you can throw them in the chat, but I'm looking at the time. And what we're going to do now is we're going to go into 4 different breakout rooms. And I believe, and then each breakout room is going to be with a facilitator who's one of the internship coordinators you met at the beginning. And in that breakout room, you're going to have an opportunity to talk about one of the themes and look at excerpts from student interview transcripts, and talk about one of the 4 themes, and kind of think about sort of what are you seeing in that, and how can, what does it mean to you, and what does it mean to the internship programs that you have, or if you aren't in a BPL school, what could it mean to design and develop a internship program? So, Brenna, I think if April, Mary Beth, Anthony, and Melissa are ready, we will send you all into breakout rooms. And then we'll have a chance at the end for some questions. So you're actually going to go to 2 different breakout rooms. You'll go to one first, and then you're going to be prompted to pick a second one to look at a different theme.
Yes. So I'm about to open up the breakout rooms, but I just want to explain really quickly. If you have the most updated version of Zoom, like one of the newest versions, I'm setting this up so you can choose which breakout room that you go to. Like Pam said, each one has a different facilitator from a different school who will be, handling a different theme. If you don't have the most updated version of Zoom, that's totally okay. You just won't be able to pick a room. So just wait here and I'll assign you to whatever room that you want to go to. And yes, everyone will have about probably 17 minutes in the first set of breakout rooms. And then I will be broadcasting a message to switch rooms if you would like to. If you're having a really fruitful conversation, feel free to stay in the same room if you want to, but that will be everyone's opportunity to switch. And then again, 17 more minutes, and then we'll bring everyone back.
The only thing left on the screen is a quotation that I'll just put in the chat that I've loved since I saw it. And I'll read it to you. And then, so it's, academics is everything, but I think that academics plus experience is what makes the best formula, because if you're just thinking about the theory and not experimenting, then actually learning. And that just really, when I was reading through yes, I will share my presentation, and that has all my little notes in it. There you go. Anyway, that quotation just really sort of struck me. Another thing that I want to say that I forgot to say earlier that really struck me is we have these questions about hope. And I think this is a testament to all of you, every big picture school and advisor and teacher and faculty member. In a lot of the quotations about hope, in a lot of the interviews about hope, we ask the question about, if you were to show a team of investigators that were doing an investigation about hope, if you were to show them something, where would you take them if they were going to visit you? And a lot of the students talk about taking them to a part of their school. And I feel like that's something we could write. We could do a whole thing on, and just, it was really touching to me, or just meaningful to me, to hear these students talk about their place of hope is their school. So I know we are about out of time, and at 3:00 there's a phenomenal speaker. I will put my email in the chat, but also if anyone has a question, I'm happy to stick around. Brenna, I don't know if I can, but happy to stick around for a few minutes and answer any questions, or if anyone has any question that they have right now. But I just put my email in the chat. It's ready@bigpicturelearning.org. And yeah, any questions, comments, anything you're going to do when you, and thank you to April, Mary Beth, Anthony, and Melissa, and Brenna. Thank you so much for everything. Need some more visitors. And there will be reports coming out about this work. I guess that's another thing to let you know. We are in the process of writing things up and getting them out. And so as soon as we have reports, it will be probably blast it all over big picture social media, and people will have access to that stuff. And we're planning to prepare things also that will be really helpful, hopefully, to schools as they build internship programs, but also as, one of the things we talk about a lot is how do you convince school committees and school boards and funders that internships are what students should be doing. And so we're going to be preparing a whole bunch of things that will hopefully help in that effort for our schools. So
fabulous. Well, thank you so much, Pam, for leading this session. Just a little bit of housekeeping, which I'm sure you've heard this in every session, but please bear with me. I have put a link that leads to the feedback form in the chat. Please fill that out if you have a second. That feedback is really beneficial for us. We always want to know how we can facilitate these sessions, facilitate these conferences better for you guys. But hopefully, fingers crossed, we'll be seeing each other in person and not virtually in the future. And yes, as Pam said, we have an awesome session. Our keynote speaker, Sonia Renee Taylor, will be speaking alongside Eva from our staff. She will be facilitating that conversation. So please, please, please come for that. And yes, Pam, I can leave this Zoom open for a few minutes if anybody wants to have a sidebar conversation.